Last week, I may or may not have been hesitant to lock these guys in as bona fide studs, but this week, it's kind of hard to ignore what they've done so far this season. So we're going to talk about some skyrocketing players. I mean, just briefly, I don't want to spend too much time. Yes, CMC is very good. Christian McCaffrey has 7 touchdowns this season. Christian McCaffrey, 71 receiving yards, 100 rushing touchdowns. We already know he's the best player in fantasy. A.J. Brown, yes, very good. Back-to-back games with double-digit targets, 14 targets last week, 13 targets this week, is 175 receiving yards and multiple receiving touchdowns. We already know he's very good. And Stephon Diggs, yes, goes out there and has 3 receiving touchdowns this week off of only 7 targets. He's had about 400 receiving yards this season. We already know he's very good. I don't want to waste your time too much with those players. Now, our main guy that I want to talk about here, at least at the beginning, will be Isaiah Pacheco. And with Isaiah Pacheco, I'm sorry if I told you to bench him against the Jets. I mean, this was a running back that I thought it was a little crazy for people to be penciling in as a high-end RB2, just because through the beginning portion of the season, Isaiah Pacheco was actually splitting this backfield 3 ways. You had a little bit of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You had a little bit of Jerick McKinnon. You had a little bit of Isaiah Pacheco. This was a team that we've known doesn't really run the ball at all, but even if they were going to look to the running backs a little bit more, ultimately, if you're in a 3-man RB by committee, it's very hard to overcome that and be viable in fantasy. Well, exactly what we wanted to happen when we were drafting Isaiah Pacheco this offseason has happened. Looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is being phased out of this offense. CEH only sees a total of 6 snaps this week in comparison to Isaiah Pacheco at 42. Now, of course, Jerick McKinnon is still going to have a role. McKinnon does have 22 snaps. He's not going anywhere, but super positive for Pacheco going forward that you're seeing this usage trend in the direction of him and McKinnon as 1 and 2. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire more so just as, an insurance policy if anything were to occur to Pacheco. Now, you can see this even if you just look at the raw game log from Pacheco so far this season. He had 8 carries week 1, 12 carries week 2, 15 carries week 3, 20 carries this past week. It's been a straight linear line up. The man's going out there and averaging about 3 additional carries per week, maybe even actually 4 additional carries per week. So, no, I do not expect that Isaiah Pacheco is going to have 25 rushing attempts next week and Isaiah Pacheco is all of a sudden going to be the running back 1 in the NFL. Nope, it's probably not going to happen. But what is happening here is he's locked and loaded as a top 20 running back every single week. This is someone that we really haven't been ranking that way, but with this kind of usage, super exciting. Plus, we already know this is an elite level offense. Now, going over to our next player, want to spend a little bit of time with Anthony Richardson. Now, obviously, Richardson had a pretty damn good game against the Los Angeles Rams, even from a real-life perspective. But more importantly, Anthony Richardson continues to show exactly how and exactly why he is a top fantasy football option in particular. He gives you 10 rushing attempts, 56 rushing yards, and the rushing touchdown. Now, at this point, if you're looking at Anthony Richardson, he has played about 2.5 games of football. Yes, he's played 3 games. In reality, hell, he left Houston at about halftime. And even remember, he got banged up in that first game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, really, we have not had the chance to see Anthony Richardson's per game numbers as if he would have been a starting quarterback for the entire time. However, because he still has 131 rushing yards so far this season, he has 4 rushing touchdowns. Hell, he's even been better as a passer as you expected. Both games that he fully played, he's had 200 passing yards as well. He is an elite option in fantasy, especially in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. Now, of course, 6-point passing touchdown formats, there you're going to be a little bit more inclined to go with the quarterback that's going to have a ton of passing volume. However, in that 4-point passing touchdown league, instead you want to be focusing on the guys that are going to have the rushing upside. Completely fine saying to buy into Anthony Richardson at this point. The only quarterbacks ahead of him from a points per game perspective are Justin Herbert and Josh Allen. Not going to count Andy Dalton. He played 1 game. Now, going over to our next guy, I do want to talk about Justin Fields just for a minute. Now, actually, before we talk about Fields, let me remind you, if you have not done so already, go check out our rest of season fantasy football rankings. Go check out all these pick'ems for week 5. If you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, my favorite place to draft and check out pick'ems, you are going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, and a Justin Fields special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard this Thursday night. So please make sure you are taking advantage of that. But with Justin Fields, this is a quarterback that gives you a massive week this past week. It's his first game in his entire NFL career where he goes out there and has over 300 passing yards. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we need to be very realistic here and ask ourselves, okay, was this due to Justin Fields in year 3 of his NFL career finally putting it together? Justin Fields has turned the corner. Justin Fields is a good NFL quarterback from here on. No. Justin Fields is not a good NFL quarterback. What clearly happened in this game is he went up against the worst defense in the NFL, where right now the Denver Broncos have allowed more points scored than any other team in the NFL at 150. The next 4 are Chicago 137, Washington 120, Miami 119, and the 5th worst defense, aka most points scored against, the Los Angeles Chargers at 104, essentially 66% of the same level scoring that you've had against the Denver Broncos. This is a historically bad Denver Broncos defense. And with Justin Fields, it was great to see that he was able to take advantage of this. Do I think that he is a top 5 quarterback going forward? In reality, probably not. The reason being as well is you're not really seeing the same rushing production that you had last year. I mean, if he was able to go through, if he was able to repeat what he did last season as a rusher, then yeah, we could be freaking pumped, right? But right now, he is 5th, tied 4th in the NFL in rushing yardage. You have Lamar Jackson at 220. You have Patrick Mahomes at 154. You have Joshua Dobbs at 141. You have Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields tied at 134. Hell, Anthony Richardson would have been ahead of him. Anthony Richardson played 2.5 games at 131. And maybe even by the time you're watching this, Daniel Jones leapfrogs him, depending on what happens in the game tonight. So I think if you can use this as a sell high moment for Justin Fields, that'd probably be something I'd look to do. I mean, if we could take Justin Fields and say a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, package him with that player and go get a quarterback like Lamar Jackson that I have no hesitation to call in an elite level option rest of season, I think we are going to do that. Now, going over to a quarterback wide receiver pairing, CJ Stroud looks great. I've been waiting for CJ Stroud to come back down to earth. I've been waiting for the passing volume to come down in this offense. Because if you are looking at CJ Stroud, week 1, 44 passing attempts. Week 2, 47. But over the past 2 weeks, CJ Stroud has only sat at 30 passing attempts, but has still remained a super productive quarterback overall. He has had pretty much over 300 passing yards the majority of the weeks, averaging over 300 passing yards per game. He has 6 passing touchdowns to 0 interceptions. And what's incredible is if you look at the very top of adjusted yards per pass attempt so far at the quarterback position this season, you have CJ Stroud only behind Brock Purdy and Tua. Hell, if you go and look at what you had last year, the only quarterback to have more than 8.8 adjusted yards per pass attempt last season was Tua, and the next 2 highest guys were Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts at 8.5 and 8.4. So in reality, yes, CJ Stroud will come back down to earth just a bit, but still, if you're looking at the play that we've had so far this season, hard not to rank him as a top 12-ish quarterback and definitely put him ahead of someone like Dak Prescott, right? Where Dak just simply doesn't have to throw the ball with how good this Dallas defense is. Now, I want to stay in Houston and talk about Nico Collins. It was very weird to see in week 3, Nico Collins only have 3 targets for 2 receptions and 34 receiving yards. You actually had Tank Dell kind of taking that step forward in weeks 2 and 3, making it seem like maybe Nico Collins wasn't the locked and loaded number 1 wide receiver in Houston. Maybe this is a spot where you really don't know what's... No. Nico Collins is the locked and loaded wide receiver 1. We have learned that now, and we are for sure. The man has 32 targets this season, averaging 8 targets a game. The man has 428 receiving yards. He's top 5 in the NFL in receiving at this point, and he has 3 receiving touchdowns as well. We don't really expect CJ Stroud to get worse as a rookie. I think this offense may actually continue to improve. And Nico Collins looks like he's probably a high-end quarterback too for the rest of the way. And trust me, I wish I drafted way more Nico Collins in underdog drafts this offseason. Now, going over and looking at Devon Achane, A running back that I didn't know what to expect going into week 4. We were saying you have to start him because he just dropped 50 points. But in reality, I mean, the workload's not certain, an extremely low floor. Well, he comes through with another incredible performance. He only has 8 carries, but with those 8 carries, he gives you a whopping 101 rushing yards, multiple rushing touchdowns. We know he's a great receiving back out of this backfield. He has 5 targets out of the backfield as well. He has 6 touchdowns through pretty much only 2 games this season. This is a running back that is right now averaging 11.4 yards per carry. Now, of course, the efficiency is going to come way down. There's no way in hell he's going to be at 11 or 10, even 9, or even 8 yards per carry rest of season. Probably comes down to 5 to 6, but what we can see is the expanded role overall. And we talked about this a little bit on the video that came out Sunday night. But one thing that I wanted to be on the lookout for, and the one thing that I really wanted to think about is, okay, well, what does this backfield look like when you eventually bring Jeff Wilson Jr. in? Because right now you have a split between Mostert and Von Achane. Week 3, Mostert had the majority of the snaps. He had 37, Achane at 30. Week 4, you had Achane at 39, Raheem Mostert at 28. So Achane's the guy that actually assumed Ford and took this role. I actually am not as worried about Jeff Wilson Jr. as I was on Sunday night, because after having a chance to really sit here and think about it, I think that what we may end up seeing is Jeff Wilson Jr. come in and take touches and take snaps away from Raheem Mostert and not Achane himself. So yeah, I mean, this is a running back that I think you have to kind of lock in as, I don't want to say a top 12-ish player at the position, but definitely at least as a high-end RB2 going forward. Now, going over to Puka Nacua, I know we have talked about him literally all season. Every single video we're talking about this guy. And it's because I have been hesitant to come out and in a single video say, okay, he is a star. He is locked and loaded rest of season. He is going to be phenomenal. I don't know why we've been hesitant to do that. This is someone that clearly is a star. This is someone that clearly is locked and loaded rest of season. And while, yes, Cooper Kupp is very good. And while, yes, I still expect Cooper Kupp to ultimately be the wide receiver 1 in this Los Angeles Rams offense, I actually had a conversation with the domain guys over on flockfantasy.com for a flockfantasy.com video, I think last week. And they brought it up to me. They were saying, okay, well, maybe what we're going to see in Indianapolis going forward is, maybe we're going to see in Los Angeles going forward is a little bit reminiscent of what you had back in the day with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, where we know back then, I mean, you actually had neither wide receiver as a true league winner, right? It's not like Cooper Kupp was going out there and leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns, receiving yards, and receptions when Robert Woods was still a functional player in this offense. You had both guys as a borderline top 24 wide receiver. Like going back and looking at this, you had Cooper Kupp averaging about 65 receiving yards per game. You had Robert Woods at about 58.5. And this may end up being what we see when Cooper Kupp comes back into this offense, where I don't want to believe it. And I wish Cooper Kupp was going to be at 100% strength. I wish we were going to get the Cooper Kupp of 2021, the Cooper Kupp of 2022. But it's very hard to go ahead and say that's for sure happening when Puka Nacua is a wide receiver that's had 501 receiving yards, only behind Justin Jefferson, that is leading the NFL with 52 targets right now. So it's most likely going to be a situation where Cooper Kupp's probably like a low-end wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Puka's probably a high-end wide receiver 2, probably a high-end wide receiver 2. Maybe even you have 2 low-end wide receiver 1s in this offense. It's just, I can literally never remember anything like this before. We tried to talk about it in that video on flockfantasy.com, but I would love to know in the comment section, can you give me another player that was a day 3 rookie draft pick that immediately day 1, the second he steps on the NFL field, is a true difference maker, is the cream of the crop top 3 at the position, where you have another guy that's elite at the position waiting in the wings? I've never seen it. Usually in fantasy football, I look at historical data and try to draw from that historical data to have an idea of what's going to happen again. But I can't draw from any historical data here. This is the first time that I can ever remember this happening, unless I'm mistaken. Of course, I know we have a lot of people that watch the channel that are a lot older than me. So please, if I couldn't find anything in my research, but you know of something, let me know. Please point me to another example of this. But I think that's all I have for y'all in this video. If you have not done so already, please go down there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, of course, you can find that link in the live chat. You can find it in the description. You can find it in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $500 on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, you're going to be getting our updated rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, a Justin Fields special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard on Thursday night. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get to see you out in the live stream later tonight.